Hey, and we're live. Welcome to another DoneJS contributor meeting. This is Friday, October the 12th. Almost a Friday the 13th. That would have been kind of cool, Halloween. I've been watching the movies. But anyways, I won't talk about that. Yeah, thanks. We're going to talk about DoneJS today. We have a lot of our regulars here with us today. We have, first up, Kevin.
Hey, I have not been watching the Friday the 13th movies.
I haven't been watching those. I was watching the Halloween.
Oh, gotcha.
Maybe I should watch it.
I haven't been watching those either.
And we have Sheriff with us.
Hey, hello everyone. Thank you.
And lastly, we have Thomas.
Good morning, people.
Thomas is very calmly letting everyone know good morning. It's early for him in Arizona. So yeah, thanks for coming to another meeting. We just did our DoneJS survey. Thanks to everyone who filled that out. Anytime, any more input that we get from people, the better. So, definitely do these and fill out the additional comments if you have anything else. If sometimes it's like sometimes we don't always pick the best item proposals, and if there's like, why are you not focused on this other thing, let us know. Give us a good spiel about it, and that's very useful. So thanks for everyone who participated, and let me go over the results. We've talked about it, about the results. We kind of decided on what we want to do, but first let me just let everyone know what kind of how it went. Improving dev tools was the top ranked item for this time. And yeah, so I guess I can just say off the bat, we're definitely going to do that. Kevin, I believe you're already starting to kind of work on ideas around the next version.
Yeah, starting planning, like a real planning. There's a lot of ideas in there that are kind of sketched out, but
can you give like a sneak peek and just what are some of those things that you were thinking about doing?
Yeah, here I can share.
Okay.
My screen. So some of those things, I think we're gonna maybe tackle this in a little bit different order than is on here. Oops, I'm making the right screen bigger. The first thing that I want to do is definitely get the view model editor right. I think that is the closest to being a very useful feature that DevTools has. So I've already started working on a new JSON editor to replace the third-party one that we're using. So that's probably the first thing that we'll work on is finish improving the view model editor. There's also some bugs, like it breaks if there's a promise in your view model, stuff's not serialized correctly, things like that. And then second, we might just iron out some of these other bugs. It sounds like we're gonna have myself and maybe one other person working on this. So maybe fix some lingering issues while we do some design work on the other things. And then the next thing is maybe do some design work and some user testing around the components tree view. I think that's the next thing we need to figure out. I think people really expect to have something more like what Vue.js has, where there's an actual like tab in DevTools that says CanJS and has this kind of tree view of your components. But that's just kind of my gut intuition and some anecdotal stuff I've heard from a few people is like, why don't you have this view like Vue has or like React has, where you can see all your components? So what I want to do is do a little bit of design, maybe put together a prototyping and have one of our designers do some user testing on that to see if that's actually the right way to go, or if that's just kind of my instincts. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking for the first couple phases of this project.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I was actually just using the DevTools earlier today, and I found myself like trying to, look. The way it works now is it works pretty well. Is that you do have the tree view just in regular elements, and you can then see the view model. But when we have our own tab, I think we'll definitely need that. So I do like the way the view works. It's very simple. You can see the hierarchy. There's not all like the other divs and stuff.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes it a little bit messier. So
yeah, it lets you see kind of a high-level overview of what your app looks like. Right. Do you have a bunch of components that are in the page that aren't actually rendered or whatever? You can see things they're re-rendering, all that kind of stuff. So
all right, cool. Then The data guide was next. Let me just kind of what's interesting here. Some of our new proposals. PWA is not a new one, but we hadn't been on the survey for a while, so we put it on there. Simplified routing is a new one. Transparent rendering of components is a new one, and the finite state machines is new. So there's a few new ones. There's a lot. It happens often is that a new proposal doesn't get as many votes as kind of the ones that have been on there a lot. So don't be discouraged if you voted for for CAN reducer or transparent rendering of components. They're actually not that far from being voted into something that we're actually working on. So don't be discouraged. I think actually improving CanJS dev tools was not super high on the last survey. So
yeah, last survey was like 5th or 6th.
Yeah.
Like that. So it was like one we almost picked up, but not quite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask about CAN reducer. So we had talked about this a little bit, that there's streaming view models and CAN reducer are both on here, and they're kind of the same.
Yes,
one's like a subset of the other one.
That's my mistake. I meant to just put the streaming view models. I think that's the one we're probably going to go with.
Yeah, so like streaming view models is a parent of CAN reducer. Streaming view models is like
I know.
CAN reducer is one of the options for a streaming view model. Did we figure out if like everyone voted for both of them, or?
No, I didn't. So yeah, so if you actually total them together, you get 9 votes, so, which would actually put them in something that we might select. But no, I did not check to see if there was overlap or not. Maybe I'll do that.
I think it would have missed the cut anyway, right? It sounds like, but we should maybe figure out.
Yeah, we missed the cut anyways, but we should just have one, and then make it vague enough to be like, we'll figure out exactly what it's going to be, but here's the general idea.
Yeah, I think that's what the streaming view models one is supposed to be.
Okay. Yeah, so just go the ones we picked. Data guide we picked, or excuse me, CanJS DevTools already said we picked. The data guide has been high on the list recently, and we're going to do that one. And those are kind of the 2 big ones. And then for stretch goals, it's going to be warning when mutations occur in the wrong spot. We're hoping we get to that one. And then the second stretch goal would be making StillJS deduplicate less imports. So we'll see how it goes, depending on availability of people and stuff. We might get to all 4 of these, or we might not. We might only be able to get the first 2. So we'll see how that goes. But this is the survey. Thanks for everyone for participating.
Yeah, I think the warnings when mutations occur in the wrong spot, I think we definitely should at least figure out how to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
Even if we don't have time to,
we can just do a spike where we write up this needs to change, this needs to change. Yeah, I think it could be a good step forward. All right, so if we should do demos, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to go? Kevin, you want to do yours first?
Yeah, sure.
All right, here, go.
Doesn't matter, though.
Do it.
Okay. Cool. So demo. So Patovi had a retreat last week where we did some training. I did some training on logic and testing in CanJS, some stuff that I've been working on a lot with these guides. And then the last week and a half, I spent basically writing up the training into an actual formal logic guide. So that's kind of what I've been working on for the last couple of weeks. So this is out now. It's published on canjs.com under guides. It says logic right here under the essentials. This talks about a lot of different things. Shows you some of the high level things, organizing your view models, how to do derived properties using both like getters and the new value property behaviors, and then methods, what you should use methods for, how to do DOM side effects, and then the last thing isn't really logic, but it's like how to clean up your logic. So we can go through some of this stuff real quick. So the organize your view model properties, this is what is going to be, I think, in the next DoneJS generator for components. It's going to lay out these different sections. So this is kind of how we suggest kind of our best practice for how you should organize your view models. This might seem like a small thing, but it really helps people when they come onto a project to understand the different properties that are a part of the view model and like which things they should be mutating and which things they really shouldn't be mutating. So you can actually click on this example and it will show you all of these things and actually use these different types of properties to actually give you the descriptions of these things. The same stuff is kind of up here in the guide, but if you want to see it in action, you can click on this code pen. So methods is using a method. Side effects is using this kind of bootstrap modal and shows you how to handle side effects with things that need to interact with the DOM. This is using jQuery to show and hide the modal when you click on stuff. So yeah, check that out. The next thing is derived properties. We recommend most of your logic should be handled in derived properties. So there's two different ways, like I mentioned, getters and value property behaviors. This kind of goes through all these different things. Shows an example of some imperative code and how to replace it with a getter. Most people that are using CanJS have seen this already. Shows you what not to do. So this is an example where this getter is actually doing a mutation. This is one of those things that we're going to add a warning for. Definitely, you should not be doing mutations like this inside of getters. And this shows you an example of why you shouldn't. So this getter makes an AJAX request for a /API/ID, and then once the AJAX request responds, it actually increments the ID. So since this getter is both reading and then updating the ID, this will just infinite loop over and over. You can see this is just continually making new AJAX requests. So this is a kind of stupid example, but this kind of thing happens if you mutate stuff in getters and you don't actually realize. So like this will change some property that ID derives from, whatever. And you end up with these circular infinite loops without realizing it. What else? So this shows you how to do this other example without mutations. This uses the new value behavior to do the same kind of thing. There's some more complex versions of how to do this value behavior. This one, something I showed off in the training, is like a slider example where it's got this min and max value. You can't pull this slider outside of that, and then if you increase the min or lower the max, it'll update the value. That's kind of cool. So methods shows you how to do methods that are simple, shows you how to use the new simple setters. But then for more complex stuff, it shows you how to replace code like this that does a bunch of different things with event dispatching so that you can keep your methods simple. Your methods are only doing one thing. And then the kind of the most interesting example is this Simon game. You can't hear this, but these are actually making noises when I click on these. So check that out. And then the last thing is just how to do how to clean up your event handlers when you need to, when CanJS is going to do it for you. It gives you all those kinds of details. So definitely check out the logic guide. Let us know what you think. If there's stuff that's missing or if there's things in here that you find confusing, definitely let us know and we'll try to fix that stuff up.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
Did I make it in under 5 minutes?
Probably not. But
yeah, I didn't think so.
It's okay. Hey, Thomas, you have something to show?
Yeah, I'm working on my other computer today and I was trying to bring it up. It looks like my computer's running slower than normal.
Okay, we can come back to you in a second if would be lovely. Give you a minute. Sheriff.
Okay, let me share my screen. I was working on you see my screen, everyone?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I was working on the SVG issue with the CanStash. Here we can see that we have two shapes with or two H shapes. The first one is a normal HTML SVG tag. And as you can see, it has an inner shadow. And the second one is a can component rendered with the help of CanStash template. And you can see the difference that the inner shadow is not applied in the can component. And this was the issue. And in a client project, we have to render the correct SVG shape. So after inspecting, we can see the difference here in the attributes. For example, on the SVG tag, for each attribute, it has an XMLNS namespace or attribute, which has namespace URI as HTTP, or the as you can see, the correct namespace URI value. But it's not the same thing for the rendered SVG shape with can stash. It misses the namespace URI value, which is null here. It was not, and it was not the unique issue here, because the interesting part, I think, is the use tag, which uses the xlink href attribute that reference a shape in the definitions here, or a path in the definitions, which has the ID shape, as you see, as a value for the xlink href attribute. And in the SVG rendered with can stash, the xlink href namespace URI is missing too, and it doesn't have the prefix also. But in the corrected rendered corrected the SVG, we can see the presence of all those information. Here is the namespace URI and the prefix. Sorry for the use tag. Here, the namespace URI is correct, and also the prefix. So the solution was into places in the CanJS modules. The first one is in the can view target, where we should apply the namespaces for attributes using the set attributes NS, or as we can read it, set attribute namespace. So I changed this part, which was missing, to apply the correct namespace for the attribute. But those arguments are passed from the can stash template. And here is the fix, the other part of the fix, where I declared some namespaces for attributes like the XMLNS namespace URI attribute value or namespace value, and the xlink href namespace URI for the xlink attribute. And this is the object that hold those information that we can check the presence of, where we can with this we can check the presence of the namespace in an attribute. And this part was changed here. So we check if there is a match for namespace URI for an attribute, and instead of passing just a value or a section or compiled section, we should pass an object that has the value of the attribute and the namespace URI, or the matched namespace URI of the attribute name. And yeah, like this, with those two solutions and those two packages, worked very well. I tested in my computer with. I changed the code and the node modules packages, and as you can see, it works very well. Of course, there is test for the solution in the PRs, and as you can see now, the attributes has the namespaces values like in the xlink href namespace URI and the node value, even the prefix, the attribute prefix, and also for the SVG, there's all the namespace URIs here, like this.
Awesome.
This is the solution. It was for me. It was complicated. I don't know.
No, I think that from what I saw of the diff, it looks. I don't see any problem with it. Looks good to me. Yeah, the only thing is there was one point where, I mean, this is very minor, I think, but where you're calling set attribute ns.
Yes.
Usually that stuff goes through DOM mutate, and that's so that, like, for regular attributes, DOM mutate will like trigger an attributes event. And so because you're directly calling set attribute ns, that won't happen in this particular case. So ideally, we would update can DOM mutate and add a set attribute ns to that, and that way it could still do the logic that it does. However, I think for now we should merge this because the chances that someone is listening to cares about namespace attribute change events is probably pretty low, even though we should support that use case. I don't think it's worth blocking the fix for that personally. So it looks good to me. So thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, no problem.
Thomas, are you ready, or do you?
Yeah, I can go.
Okay, cool.
I have just been doing continuing on documentation updates, making sure that everything's spelled correctly, that we have good examples linking towards CodePen that just work, and most of them are a little bit better than this in the fact that they tell you how they work rather than just sending you back a success. That's pretty much it. That is included in can gray logic and can fixture, as we saw there, as well as currently can routing.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Thomas. I've been working on routing as well for DoneJS. So as everyone knows, there's been the routing guide, which I think has been pretty good solution for routing in CanJS. So we want to bring some of the routing patterns over into DoneJS. And one of the big problems that people have, so I can probably, let me see if Place My Order has this problem or not. Not really, but because it's pretty much directly tied to routing. But a lot when you get into bigger apps is you have to serialize false, because you want to have stuff on your application view model that's not related to the route. You know, you just have global state that you want to pass around, and so you have to serialize false, and if you forget to do it, then it tries to serialize it to URL, and it becomes a mess. So then some people started. There's actually, I'm not sure if Define Map supports this. I think it does. I think you can do like a star serialized false, and that's kind of a workaround. But anyways, what a lot of people have wanted to do, and some people have started to do, is to externalize their routing view model to. Sorry, my dog decided to come in here right now. So what a lot of people do is they put their routing data on a separate view model and then use that from within their main application view model. That way they kind of segregate the the stuff that appears in the URL versus just the general application state. So anyways, so done auto render supports this now as well. You can actually use this pattern. Let me use kind of the more familiar way here. So here is like I was just talking about. We're using can route push date. We're registering our routes, and then we have this route data view model. And then within our main application view model, we set the route data property to be an instance of that view model. So then your page, you can just say route data.page to use that. But the key feature change here is that done auto render now supports a route data property or attribute in your can import. So in your can import, where you define your view model, you can set route data to equal any string here, and this is the string property name. So what this tells it is that the route data property on your view model, which is this, that type is your routing view model. So what it will do is it will bind this route data property to the actual can route. And this way, like I said, you get the two-way routing between this defined map instance and the URL without tainting the rest of your application view model. So that's a simple way to think about it. We also have, so this is, what is this? This is done auto render 2.4 supports this. Another change that we've had recently is that the default route.data is a defined map. And because of that, we can easily use this. You can say route.data.page to be the page. So what happens behind the scenes is when you define your routes, when you call route register, it's going to define a page property on this default route.data. In this way, you don't need to actually define a separate route data view model. You still can if you want special stuff to happen, but you don't need to. So this makes it a little bit easier. You can just use the default route.data. So in our route data property on our view model, we don't need to create that separate view model. We just say it's equal to route.data. And in the same way, in our index.stash, we say route data equals route data, and we can use it the same way. So you can kind of do either way. This way is a little, not weirder, but you kind of have a little bit less control, but you probably don't need it. So if you're a little bit more comfortable, you want to be able to like more easily do kind of weird stuff. Maybe you want to do some type coercion and stuff like that. This pattern should be pretty familiar, right? Because it's just another defined map that you create yourself. So yeah, this is in Done Auto Render 2.4, and it will be coming to DoneJS apps soon. That's what I'm currently working on. All right, cool. That is it for demos. Do we have any topics anybody wanted to discuss? Any new stuff coming up that we want to talk about? No, not really. Yeah. It's been there's been a lot of new cool stuff that we're working on, but I think we're kind of transitioning from kind of one phase where we've been doing a lot of routing stuff, and some of that's still going on with DoneJS 3, and we're kind of moving. It looks like we're moving back towards debugging and kind of the developer experience stuff there. So look forward to seeing that in the new DoneJS DevTools.
Yeah, excited about making it useful. It was really nice to get DevTools out originally, but in using it for a couple months now, it's like there's a very limited set of cases where it's actually useful. And
well, I liked something that Justin said. He's not here, but I don't want to put words in his mouth. But I think what basically he's saying is that it'd be really great if we can, get some really good design on this. We can make this like really like a really nice app, basically, right?
Yeah.
And just try to make, because that's kind of what CanJS is becoming to some degree, is that we're really focused on a lot of good developer tools, things for debugging. And if that's going to be kind of partially our, who we are, I think having really good developer tools is important, but having a really good design that really stands out. If you look at the Vue one, you look at the CanJS one, it's obvious the CanJS one is better. So I think it's something that we can strive for. Yeah,
it's really awesome that we're going to have a designer and also another developer working on it. So far, I think I'm the only person that's committed any code to DevTools. And
is it scary that someone else is going to be in that stuff?
No, it's liberating. It's oh, sure, it'll be scary, but they'll see all the terrible code I wrote. But that's fine. I'm not worried about that. But yeah, it'll be really, really awesome to have a designer working on it. I think that'll make a huge difference.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I guess we can call that a week. We'll see you guys back in a couple weeks.
The Halloween episode.
Oh yeah. Make sure to bring your costumes. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.